Manchester City were once seen as nothing more than a rich club spending huge money without a clear direction. They had money, a magnificent stadium, and superstar players, yet they still were not considered true European giants. They repeatedly failed in the Champions League, collapsed in crucial moments, and constantly lived under the shadow of Manchester United. But in 2016, one decision changed the club's history forever. They appointed Pep Guardiola, not just a successful coach, but a man already known as a revolutionary of modern football. His arrival at the Etihad was not simply the signing of a world-class manager. It was the beginning of a project that would eventually transform Manchester City into the most dominant dynasty in Premier League history. And now, almost 10 years later, that era is reportedly approaching its end. The 2025-26 season is rumored to be Guardiola's final campaign with Manchester City. If true, then the football world is witnessing the conclusion of one of the greatest eras of all time. Because over the last decade, Guardiola did not just win matches or trophies, he changed the way English football was played. He forced rivals to evolve. He built a team that was not only brilliant, but felt like a machine designed to destroy anyone standing in its way. From the Premier League to the Champions League, Guardiola's Manchester City became the new standard of modern football. And it all started with one massive decision back in 2016. So, in today's video, we're going to discuss Pep Guardiola's incredible 10-year journey at Manchester City. Guardiola's arrival and Manchester City's first revolution. When Manchester City officially announced Pep Guardiola as their new manager in February 2016, the entire football world immediately realized City were preparing something huge. Many reports even claimed the Guardiola project had actually been planned years earlier. The arrivals of Ferran Soriano and Txiki Begiristain, two of Guardiola's trusted allies from Barcelona, became key parts of City's long-term strategy. The club no longer wanted to simply buy expensive players and hope success would eventually come. They wanted to build a completely new football identity. Guardiola himself viewed the Premier League as the greatest challenge of his managerial career. After extraordinary success at Barcelona and Bayern Munich, many doubted whether his possession-based philosophy could survive in England, a league known for its speed, intensity, and physical pressure. But from his very first day in Manchester, Guardiola showed he had arrived to change everything. He introduced build-up play from the back, aggressive pressing, extreme positional rotations, and the inverted fullback concept that still felt unusual in the Premier League at that time. Guardiola even made the controversial decision to bench Joe Hart, a fan-favorite goalkeeper, because he believed Hart did not fit the system he wanted. Many supporters were furious, English media mocked him, and pundits began questioning whether Guardiola was simply too stubborn. But Pep did not care. He believed football required players capable of understanding space, tempo, and ball distribution perfectly. That was the true beginning of Manchester City's revolution. Guardiola was not building an ordinary football team. He was building a laboratory of modern football that would eventually change the face of the Premier League forever. The first season failed, but became the foundation. Guardiola's first season with Manchester City was far from perfect. For the first time in his managerial career, he finished a season without winning a single trophy. City only managed third place in the Premier League, were knocked out of the Champions League by AS Monaco, and failed completely in domestic competitions. The English media attacked Guardiola relentlessly. Many pundits claimed he had finally been exposed because he was no longer coaching Barcelona's golden generation or Bayern Munich's dominant Bundesliga machine. Heavy defeats against Everton, Chelsea, and Leicester City made the criticism even harsher. Some people genuinely began believing Guardiola's tiki-taka philosophy would never work in the fast and physical environment of English football. However, behind all those failures, Guardiola was actually laying the foundations for the greatest era in Manchester City history. He started rebuilding the squad and recruiting players who perfectly suited his system. Ederson arrived to become a goalkeeper capable of initiating attacks from deep positions. Kyle Walker was signed to provide pace and tactical flexibility. Bernardo Silva arrived as a technical player capable of operating in multiple positions. Guardiola also began transforming Kevin De Bruyne into the creative center of City's football. Slowly, Manchester City became completely different from the team they had been before Guardiola arrived. That trophyless season was not a sign of failure. It was the first year in the birth of the Premier League's greatest modern dynasty. Guardiola accepted criticism and ridicule because he was determined to create a team built entirely around his own football ideals. Manchester City became a Premier League destruction machine. Every doubt surrounding Guardiola completely disappeared during the 2017-18 season. Manchester City played like an almost perfect football machine. They won the Premier League with 100 points, a record that still remains untouched today. That team became known as the Centurions because they became the first club in English football history to reach 100 points in a single league season. City scored over 100 goals and dominated nearly every match with extreme possession football. Kevin De Bruyne played like a futuristic playmaker. David Silva controlled the rhythm perfectly, while Raheem Sterling and Leroy Sané destroyed defenses through pace and movement. Guardiola somehow made the Premier League look easy, something previously considered impossible. What made Guardiola's era even more terrifying was his ability to constantly evolve. After the Centurions, City won the league again in 2018-19 while also completing a historic domestic treble: Premier League, FA Cup, and Carabao Cup in one season. Then between 2021 and 2024, Guardiola created another historic achievement by leading City to 4 consecutive Premier League titles, something no English club had ever accomplished before. Even when key players left or suffered injuries, Guardiola's system continued functioning perfectly. Rodri became the heart of the team, Bernardo Silva evolved into a pressing monster, while Erling Haaland arrived and instantly shattered Premier League scoring records. Guardiola did not simply build a great team, he created a system capable of surviving across multiple generations of players. And slowly, the rest of Europe began copying Manchester City's style of football. The Champions League and the treble that changed history. Despite dominating English football for years, there was still one trophy haunting Guardiola and Manchester City: the Champions League. Again and again, they failed in Europe's biggest moments. City were dramatically eliminated by Tottenham Hotspur, humiliated by Olympique Lyonnais, and crushed by Real Madrid's incredible comeback in 2022. Criticism toward Guardiola became even louder because many believed he overcomplicated major Champions League matches with strange tactical experiments. Winning the Premier League was no longer enough. Everyone knew Manchester City's project would only be considered complete if they conquered Europe. The pressure grew larger every season, and the longer City failed, the more people believed Guardiola might never lead them to Champions League glory. But all those wounds and failures were finally redeemed during the 2022-23 season. Manchester City reached the most complete version of themselves in club history. With Erling Haaland as the goal machine, Rodri controlling matches, and Kevin De Bruyne orchestrating attacks, City destroyed almost every opponent in Europe. Even Real Madrid were humiliated 4-0 at the Etihad in one of the greatest performances by an English club in Champions League history. In the final against Inter Milan, Rodri's goal secured a 1-0 victory and delivered Manchester City's first ever Champions League title. Combined with the Premier League and FA Cup, City officially completed a historic treble. Soon after, they also won the UEFA Super Cup and FIFA Club World Cup. At that point, Manchester City were no longer just an elite club. They officially became a global football dynasty. The end of Guardiola's era and a legacy that will never disappear. After nearly a decade dominating English football, signs of Guardiola's era beginning to fade have started appearing in recent seasons. The pressure of maintaining perfection year after year has become incredibly exhausting. Several key players are aging, long-serving staff members have left the club, and rivals are slowly beginning to catch up to Manchester City's level. The 2024-25 season became one of Guardiola's most difficult periods at the Etihad. City started losing the consistency that once made them appear untouchable. Even so, Guardiola still showed his elite quality by keeping City competitive at the top while continuing to add domestic trophies to their collection. However, multiple European reports now suggest the 2025-26 season will most likely become Guardiola's final year at Manchester City. If this truly marks the end of Guardiola's journey at City, he will leave as the greatest manager in the club's history. Across nearly 10 years at the Etihad, Guardiola delivered 6 Premier League titles, 3 FA Cups, 5 Carabao Cups, 3 Community Shields, 1 Champions League, 1 UEFA Super Cup, and 1 FIFA Club World Cup. Around 20 trophies in a single decade. But his greatest legacy is not just the number of trophies. He changed the club's mentality, transformed the standards of the Premier League, and forced the entire football world to adapt to his ideas. Manchester City were once simply a rich club trying to buy success. Now, they are part of football history itself. And when Guardiola eventually leaves the Etihad, it will not simply mark the end of a manager's journey. It will mark the conclusion of one of the greatest dynasties football has ever seen. Pep Guardiola arrived at Manchester City to build a major project. But what he leaves behind is far bigger than just a football project. He created a new identity. He changed the way the Premier League is played. He built a team that forced the rest of Europe to evolve simply to keep up with the standards he created himself. And perhaps the craziest part of all, many younger Manchester City fans have never even experienced life without Guardiola's dominance. Because for nearly a decade, Manchester City did not just win football matches, they controlled football itself. So, in your opinion, is Pep Guardiola the greatest football manager of all time? Or is there still someone else above him? Write your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more football stories, deep analysis, and the biggest drama in the football world.